From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the news at 10, live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight.
And welcome. I am Lumide Macaulay. Tonight, Inspector General of Police Mohammed Abubakar kicks against state police, insists Nigeria is not ripe for it. Youth group storms Imo State Government House demanding the reinstatement of the impeached Deputy Governor. Another group embarks on a counter-protest. No end in sight in the tug-of-war between the federal government and ASUU, as university lecturers insist on continuing with their strike. And proposals for an African standby force gets a major boost at the Summit on Peace and Security in Africa.
Nigeria's Minister of Power, Chinedu Nebo, wants South Africa to join country's power supply drive.
Now, sports news tonight, Manchester United suffers their defeat, but this time at the hands of Newcastle.
Thank you so much for joining us on the news at 10 tonight. The debate over whether Nigeria should adopt state police came up again today, this time in Asaba, the Delta State capital, where the Inspector General of Police gave account of his stewardship so far. In his response to an earlier presentation by legal practitioner and human rights activist Mr. Michael Zekome, the police boss, Mohammed Abubakar, insisted that the country is not yet ripe for state police.
Let me quickly make one. I'm advocating today for state police. We need state police, community policing. If, for example, like the governor said when he was talking, that there's a community that is involved in cases of kidnapping. If you have a state police force, where most of the recruits are posted to the enclaves of those communities and they speak their language and they have intelligence report gathering, they can understand the language of these people, they can even understand their body language, they can give out a report immediately they are trying to plan a crime.
I agree with you that the possibility of state police, but looking at our culture, our history, our political issues and religious issues in this country, I still stand to the fact that it's a time thing. Nigeria is still not ripe for state police. Because I can give you a lot of examples. I don't know how places like Plateau will have been governed, or even take places where, or let me throw this question back to you, to say that, tell me one state in Nigeria where a political party is in power and there is a local government election and an opposition party won all the elections. Is there any state in Nigeria? That is the answer to it, some of these problems.
Also on security issues, the United States government has always advocated a multifaceted approach to tackling insecurity. It's an approach they strongly recommend for Nigeria in the fight against insurgency in the north, and one that was once again emphasized by the U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, Mrs. Linda Thomas Greenfield, during her visit to Channels Television headquarters in Lagos. She was received by the Chairman, CEO, Mr. John Momoh, and some senior management staff. Mrs. Thomas Greenfield has been in the country to follow up on President Barack Obama's meeting with President Goodluck Jonathan on the sidelines of the last UN General Assembly meeting in New York. She's expected to meet with governments, business and civil society representatives to continue to build on the U.S.-Nigeria partnership. Speaking later in an interview with our Foreign Affairs correspondent, Amarachi Ubani, She shared America's eagerness to help Nigeria explore other strategies for fighting insurgency.
I think fighting terrorism is very complex, and it requires more than just security tools. Security tools deal with the security threats, but there are also related threats to communities. The people in those areas where Boko Haram is operating are victims of Boko Haram, but sometimes in the process they become victims of the actions of the government to deal with Boko Haram. So we want to continue to have discussions with the Nigerian government, share with them the experiences that we have had in dealing with counterinsurgencies and the impact that that has on civilian populations so that the civilian populations can be protected. In addition to that, in the case of Nigeria, we also want to look at the development needs of that region because there are many people who feel disaffected. They feel that the government is not there for them, and because of that, they are enticed or become witting supporters of Boko Haram. And so those social and political infrastructural requirements also need to be addressed. President Goodluck Jonathan was in Gombe announcing something called similar to a Marshall Plan for that area, and that is something that we welcome because we think it will show the community that the government is there for them.
U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs Linda Thomas-Green, away from security following a purported statement by the EFCC clearing the former Deputy Governor of Imo State, Mr. Jude Agbaso, of involvement in a contract scandal in March 2013, a group of youth in the state have stormed the government house calling for the reinstatement of the former Deputy Governor. The leader of the group, Mr. Emeka Nwakwo, said they are concerned about the way in which the former Deputy Governor was impeached and claimed that since the EFCC had cleared him of all charges, the House of Assembly should begin the process of reinstating him. Meanwhile, another group also staged a counter-protest, asking the state governor not to be distracted by such groups.
First to flood the gates of the government house were youths carrying placards with inscriptions that call for the reinstatement of the former Deputy Governor of Imo State, Mr. Jude Agbaso, who was impeached earlier in March. They claim he has been cleared by the EFCC and should be returned to office.
The EFCC have vindicated Jude Agbaso and have cleared him that he has nothing, no knowledge, no traces about the said missing funds of Imo.
We are here to affirm Imo say that Sir Jude Agbaso is innocent, and we are here to ask the House of Assembly that the same way they impeached him, that the same way they should also start the process of reinstating him immediately, because you cannot kill a man for an offense he did not commit.
Some minutes after that protest, another group under the aegis of the Imo Youth's Vanguard arrived at Government House Gate, alleging that the first group was sponsored and called on the government not to be distracted.
Some agents of darkness who do not want good things, who only want the money to be shared, are distracting our God-given governor from the good things God is using him to do in Imo State. And we are standing in solidarity with the governor to tell them that it is not in this state. Gone are the days of sharing the money. What we want now is action, just like Owele Anayoruchas is doing in Imo.
In his response, the Chief of Staff to the Governor of Imo State, Mr. Jude Ejogo, maintained that the state government remains committed to its duties.
I will assure you that this government will never be distracted. We will continue to do that which Imo people like, and that is enormous projects.
Meanwhile, the spokesman to the EFCC, Mr. Wilson Uwujare, has dissociated the commission from any statements clearing Mr. Agbaso from the case.
The Minister of Labour, Chief Emeka Wogu, has challenged agencies under his ministry to do their best in ensuring the achievement of the federal government's transformation agenda. Speaking to the management of the National Directorate of Employment in Abuja, Mr. Wogu explained that the performance contract signed by all ministers and heads of government agencies provides a parameter to measure the success of those agencies. The NDE management was in the minister's office to present an award for quality service given to the directorate by the Independent Service Delivery and Monitoring Group.
And I want you and your team to continue to support the transformation agenda of Mr. President and make sure that it succeeds. And the only way you can succeed is to continue to perform, and it will reflect in your performance sheets. I monitor you, I have scored you, but this is not the time for me to come out with the result of my rating. But I will reassure you that if you have done badly or poorly, I would have called you so that you start correcting the areas of lack of performance.
Part 2, after the break, women gather in Ekiti to brainstorm on ways to address the gender question. That's in a moment. Please join us again.